Here's a tutorial on speed ramping. Final Cut Pro does this easier than any other software that I've used. You'll get Final Cut Pro just to use it for speed ramping. It's that easy. So, without further ado.
For those of you who don't know, speed ramping is not just slow motion of action, but also the gradient, or ease in, applied from normal speed as it flows into the slow motion, or stopping, and then ramping back up to normal speed again. If you've watched my two short films here, links in the description of this video, you'll see my use of speed ramping to augment the bullet time effects. Oops, how did that get in there? Please ignore that. We shot another short film for you because, well, we like doing that sort of thing. And so I can drop the footage into Final Cut Pro so you can see how it was done. Okay, so here we are in Final Cut Pro. We have some action. This is how we shoot for the bullet time effects. We basically have the talent freeze their action and the camera moves around them. And that's something that can be sped up or slowed down. So to actually process this, we highlight the clip, hit the Command R, and we're looking for the points that we want to have the action slowed down. So right here, she's pointing her finger and everything else, and then all of a sudden, whoop, if I want that to be the slow point, we hit Shift B, and you can see it puts a mark on the actual retiming line, and movement here, right about there, another Shift B. There's two ways I do this. I generally set up several different points on this, and then go back and then adjust them accordingly. Another way you can do it is, now that I've placed two marks on here, that means anything in between here will be adjusted in the speed ramp. And so if I were to just click, there's a drop down here, as you can see, and I can choose whichever rate that I wish. I'll go 50% right now, and you'll see it automatically puts it in place. It expands the timeline. So in here you can see the slow motion is registered as orange, green is normal motion, fast motion is going to be blue. Just so you see here, this is the actual speed ramp. When we go from normal to the slow, Final Cut Pro automatically calculates this ramping down of the motion. So we look at this here, boom. So that actual movement can be adjusted. How fast we move into it can be adjusted here. And then immediately goes to slow, or we have something that's a little bit more of a draw, so I could go all the way back to here, where the action is boom. So it's a smoother gradient going into that. And it's really easy, it's click and drag. If I wanted to extend this and make this actually longer, I could go here, or I could just simply grab the tail end here and increase it or decrease it accordingly. So there's different ways that you can do that to suit your needs. Some people like that, and you can also go to custom. Custom allows you to set the actual percentage, specific duration, and so forth. Now that we've got that little speed ramp going through here, boom, I'm going to slow down another section. We just highlight the clip again, sets the marker, and set another marker, Shift B. Again, I'm going to do the simple, quick 50%. This motion would be smoother on the speed ramp and slow motion had I shot this in 60 frames per second minimum. As it is, I shot it in 30 because I didn't have my new camera at the time that could shoot 4K at 60. A speed ramp to 50% gets you 15 frames per second, which is a little choppy motion, but Final Cut Pro also has an option for smoothing that out further. So if we look at, let me isolate just this clip. I'm going to break this up and go to each one of these, break that up there. So what I did was I basically just broke this clip up specifically. It doesn't change the speed ramping in or out to the items. So if I look back here, we can see that is still ramping up to normal motion here. We still have the same amount of ramping here. All I did was I made it, and this is a little trick for trying to get this motion really smooth, especially if you shot it in 30 frames per second. You go up to your modify, retime, check out your video quality. You have normal frame blending, which basically puts a additive or overlay process that tries to calculate the in-between frames. Doesn't do it in a processor intensive way. It's a quick and dirty type of effect. Sometimes that can work for you depending on what you're looking for in your video. However, we're looking for something a little higher end, and that's where optical flow comes in, where it calculates the actual vector motions from one frame to the next and then actually renders out an in-between frame as accurately as it can. This now has a difference. We'll actually render that frame. Click on the little wheel here and you can see exactly what's occurring. It's very processor intensive, as I said. However, I am on a Mac Mini with 6 cores and external Radeon RX 580. Motion comes in, is much smoother. Through there after the render, you can see where optical flow does come into play. I'm going to boost this up 200%. And what you're going to see is that little blurring in the background. Again, it's trying to actually create frames in between. We'll look at the line here because it's a little more prevalent. Right there. That's basically a vector motion calculation, and it's doing its best. It's on something that's going fast. A lot of people won't notice that right off the bat, especially if what's on screen in the center of the frame is, or on the thirds, is more interesting. The reason I cut this separately is because if you try to calculate optical flow retiming across the entire clip without cutting it like this, it will calculate the entire clip with optical flow. That analysis takes a long time. So a quick way to do it is just to break up the clip, highlight that clip alone, and then work the optical flow just on that clip. That's just a little trick to help get you through faster rendering on that. So again, here, everything is just really highly modifiable. If I wanted to increase this and make this fast motion, I slide that over, or I simply just go into here, we'll bump it up to whatever version I want, ramp that up, and then all of a sudden this motion is fast coming in. I'll go into other aspects of how to set up bullet time, but this is why this is so easy to do in Final Cut Pro versus After Effects or any of the other programs where you have to set up Bezier curves and then you have to adjust the timeline and everything else separately. If you enjoyed this video, just let me know. Let me know if you want to know anything else about this retiming process, and I will address it. Thank you.